Welcome back to another season of Rugby League, and with us at Serious About Rugby League, we're going to try once again to do a podcast. Last year, myself and Daniel tried to do as much as we possibly could. Unfortunately, circumstances dictated we couldn't get through a lot more, but we've got a revamped podcast this year, and this year I'm joined by a brand new person. I'm joined with a good friend of mine, Connor. He's a massive Rugby League fan, but once again a Leeds fan. I'm just stuck with Leeds fans at all times. But we're going to jump straight in. Like I said, we're going to try and do things a little bit different this year, trying to have a bit more of a conversation and hopefully get you guys involved later on. So we're going to start with the Super League, of course, and newcomers, London Broncos. Wow. Well, what do you start with? A massive win against Trinity.
Yeah, brilliant. Good crowd as well. I think it's the biggest crowd they've had since they've moved to the new stadium, which is brilliant. Massive win against Trinity. But a couple of people did predict it. Your first game, you've got to start well. Chris Chester straight away blaming the 4G pitch.
I do think it's interesting that Wakefield came into the competition like everybody bigged them up, top 5 contenders. Everyone predicted them in the top 5-6, and as you said, it's a new first game and you're at home. But I still think I'm disappointed in Wakefield, the way they performed, the way they went about the business. Maybe took the foot off the gas early doors, went 12-0 up.
I think a lot of people are going to go down to London expecting to win, because they are predicted to finish bottom by a long way, I feel, by most of the pundits. But they're going to give people a game. They didn't get promoted for no reason. They're a good team. They went away to Toronto, which is something nobody else has done this do, and come away with a win. In the biggest game of the club's new start since they've rebranded again back to the Broncos from the Harlequins and moved stadiums twice now, I think.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, They could have a massive shock season and come through and finish 9th, 10th, but I still don't see it. I mean, but they've got themselves off to the perfect start, and that's what's important. And if they're going to go and win the first 4 out of 8, then you never know.
We'll have to see how they perform away. I think they've got Salford next at Salford, which obviously Salford played really well against Huddersfield, so that'll be an hard game. If they pull off a good performance there, then you might be able to back them to stay up. But
go as far as to say a top of the table clash early doors between London and Salford.
That might be a bit of a stretch.
We'll move on, and we'll talk about the game tomorrow night to us. It might have already happened to you guys at home, depending on when this gets released. Hull versus Castleford. Now, Hull, as you like to mention, and you mentioned on the way down, 12 losses in a row. I don't buy into that concept as much, but they did lose the first game of the season against Hull KR, and massive rivals, which is a game that will hit the spirits a little bit.
We really enjoyed watching that game. Actually, it was a really, really good contest. Brilliant finish as well. I love to see Jimmy Carnos crossing over at the end there. It's what Rugby League's all about. It's a brilliant derby. But I'd be scared if I was a Hull FC fan. They've not seen the investment you would hope from to say they've finished the season as badly as they did as well.
I would argue that they've come up against a strong Hull KR team though. I mean, you mentioned Jimmy Carnos. That right hand side, as we mentioned on the way down, is it's littered with Super League experience. You've got Joel Tompkins, Jimmy Carnos, Danny Maguire, and then you've got Mitch Garbutt running up the middle. This team is a serious team, and it should be considered as a contender for the top 5 and not written off in any way. And Hull FC competed, not only competed, probably had the chances to win the game and couldn't quite get over the line. I don't think there's as bad a problem as being made out. What I would say is they've got Castleford next, and Castleford are a strong team. That would be a tough game for them to win.
If they can't at least give a good performance against Castleford, you would be worried for Lee Radford's job. You can't go about in Super League fair enough winning the Challenge Cup. You can't then go and lose 13 games in a row, start off a new season with 2 losses, one against local rivals, and teams you should, well, maybe not Castleford. You wouldn't expect to beat Castleford, but they are at home, so you would expect at least one win. You would
expect a good contest of this game tomorrow. Let's forget about there's been 12 losses or 11 losses or 1 loss. Hull FC need to come out and play a good game of rugby. Jake Connor's back into the squad, so that's going to be a massive boost for them. We all know how good he is on his day. But they need to come out and they need to give Castleford a game, and that's important.
Luckily for them, obviously Luke Gale's missing for Castleford all season, but then again, they didn't seem to miss him last week.
Paul McShane stood up to the mic. I mean, we need to point this out. Like, a lot of jokes fly around Facebook and Twitter about Paul McShane, but he's a genuinely top-class player.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe Leeds let him go, but I can't believe that about a lot of players Leeds let go. We've ignored the Hull KR misses for the season, but I think that's best for my mental health. But Paul McShane's brilliant. I think he got 2 tries and 2 assists that game.
Yeah, he did. classy player and was rightly talked about amongst the Man of Steel nominations last year. Obviously didn't get into the final three, but it was in and around and had a great season. I can only expect him to do exactly the same this year.
Yeah, and if he doesn't get into the England team, I'm wondering what the Cas fans will be saying then, because he's a top class player.
The only problem for Paul McShane is that you've got to come up against 2 world-class hookers to get into that team.
More than 2, I think. England are no shortage of good hookers. You've got Darryl Clark, James Roby, Danny
My favourite, Mickey McIlroy, of course. Who will never, I don't think he'll ever get back into the England team, but you never know. Talking about Mickey McIlroy, Catalans had a disappointing start at Castleford.
It's what we've come to expect from Catalans, isn't it? They start off the season when it's cold and they've got no away game, and they just don't perform.
I look at it, and we had this conversation the other day. Mickey McIlroy is one of those players that he's never going to set a game alight, but he stops the opposition doing what they do best, and that didn't happen on Friday night, clearly.
No, in those sort of conditions, you're looking to your experienced Super League players. You've got Mickey McIlroy, you've got Sam Tompkins. You want players like that to say, we're used to these conditions, we've been to Castle away. As much as Sam Tompkins touched on, obviously Castleford away is an awful place to play. The fans are really in your face. They're about 2 foot away from the
I don't think
line.
he worded it quite correctly in terms of the way he went about it, but yeah, we understood what he was saying in that Castleford fans get in your face and make it intimidating, both as a fan and as a player.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've been there as a fan and definitely felt the atmosphere. And this is a great place to play rugby. But Catalans, everyone's pipping them. They could make top 5 easily. Obviously, Challenge Cup winners. Don't know if they'll be in it this season yet. They're adamant they will be, but
I think it's been confirmed that they will be. Yeah,
they've still got to put up a strong competition in Super League just in case that you can't always have a good cup run.
It's true, and you know what? Let's not read too much into that because they will come back and they will play some good rugby, and I'm 100% sure of that. With players like Matty Smith, Sam Tompkins, and Tony Gigot leading your line, you're not going to be far off. I
think going down to Perpignan will be the hardest away game for any team this season. It's a good surface. It is a bit windy, but that only affects your kicking game. The potential of playing fast rugby league, which I think their team is built to do, it'll make it really, really difficult for any team to go down to Perpignan and try and get a win.
I don't disagree with you at all. I don't disagree. Next, we'll talk about the Friday night game, which is the one that obviously me and you will have split loyalties, and that will be a bit hostile for a few days. But Wigan are playing Leeds at home. Let's talk about the away side first, because Leeds were disappointing against Warrington. Against a strong Warrington team, though.
Yeah, I mean, me and you both went to that game. I can't say I enjoyed myself too much. The atmosphere was brilliant. I must say credit to Warrington for selling out all of their home stands the first game of the season. Leeds attendance was quite good as well. I know there's some Warrington fans in the away end, but there was a good solid attendance. The atmosphere, to say the game was a bit dead, was actually brilliant, especially for a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, the Leeds fans enjoyed themselves as best they could given the circumstances. Warrington were fantastic, and there's no underlining that. Unfortunately, they are going to be a contender again, as we always say. I say unfortunately for us as fans, not so much as the game. Blake Austin looks incredible.
I was about to say, I'm really looking forward to actually watching Warrington play this season. I think Blake Austin looked really well. Stephen Ratchford played well. I think made them look a little bit better because Leeds didn't play well. And I mean, obviously as a Leeds fan, I've watched back at the performance. I think there's a lot of reasons for Leeds to be worried. It's the first game of the season. You don't want to put it all down to it. And you're thinking, they didn't look in the game, but there's a lot of things that you're thinking maybe you can't fix over a short period of time.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing Warrington against another fast team, another team like maybe St Helens, for example, who played really well against Wigan on Thursday night. Blake Austin, that try where the short pass breaks the line and it comes back on the inside to go under the sticks. Players like that, it's just like, that is NRL quality. St Helens have that quality as well, and obviously they played very well against Wigan, so that game will be an interesting game to wait out for. I think that'll be a really tough contest.
As for the last few years, Warrington could easily go on and win the grand final, and I don't think anyone would be that shocked, but they've got to get there and got to do it, which they've failed to do.
Maybe they are waiting for that experienced man like Blake Austin. I mean, they had Matt Gidley, who almost did it for them, and they did really well that season. We'll see how it goes this year. Gareth Widdop coming in next year, so there's no shortage of experience coming in to help them do that.
Could be the start of a dominating 5 years for Warrington. They could go and win everything, but
scary to think about.
For us at least.
For Leeds fans, I think they want a serious improvement at Wigan.
I didn't see much from the new signings. Trent Merrin and Conrad Harrell didn't look like they were in the game at all. Fair enough for Conrad Harrell, he did get injured fairly early on. He played on, and fair play to him. One thing I would say is that it looks like we've got 2 sixes at 6 and 7. We don't have somebody who's commanding the play, somebody who's going to make something. But saying that, it would have been really difficult for Richie Myler and Lalloway to make anything from that game because the forwards were not in the game. They weren't making the meters.
In those situations, given Richie Myler's experience in the Super League, you'd be expecting him to command that play, but he didn't. Lolo here, I have real sympathy for. I mean, we saw him in the World Cup last year. We saw him in the World Cup in 2017, and he looked incredible. And Lolo here has got the potential to be a really, really, really good rugby league player. Whether he takes that to the next step, I don't know. I've got sympathy. First game in freezing conditions against a really, really good side. Conrad Harrell, again, as you said, got injured. I'm still not convinced about him. I saw somebody mention that the fact that he got double marks and stuff, and it's like, yeah, but be expecting of that because he's a big centre, he's a big bloke. Like, you've surely got to come up with a way to counteract that because there's going to be a space somewhere else if that's the case.
Exactly, yeah, but I just think Leeds are missing the sort of player like I hate to say, Danny Maguire, who's gonna spot the gaps. He's gonna send players around the pitch, gonna tell them what to do. I think either Lalloway or Myler's gonna have to step up and take that role. Otherwise, I'd be advocating for someone like Liam Sutcliffe to take the 6. Whilst he may not be as technically gifted as Myler or Lalloway, he's probably got more of the brain. He's probably got more of the leadership ability to then command the field, and you need someone like that on the pitch.
And moving on to Wigan, again, another disappointing result for them, much like Leeds, against the derby away from home. It wasn't a great day out, but I would say there was more positive than negative given the circumstances of the game.
Yeah, another game we both went to. We're going to have to give a shout out again. Atmosphere was absolutely brilliant. It's my first taste of the Wigan Saints derby, and I really, really enjoyed the occasion. I thought it was brilliant. Fans on both sides were brilliant, even though Wigan fans were obviously losing. And from very early on as well, it looked like it could have been a battering, but you came back into it.
I think there was a bit of determination there, and that's something you've got to take away from that. I think the execution of the players was poor. George Williams, as the marquee signing for Wigan, has to step up and start taking those games into command, and that's what he'll be looking to do on Friday against Leeds. But again, I think there's more positives. You look at you talk about new signings for Leeds. I think the thing you've got to say, Leeds' new signings probably weren't as good as you want them to be. Wigan's new signings were as good as you could expect them to be. Joe Bullock, the prop forward from Barrow, was as good as any prop on the field, bar maybe Luke Thompson. And he's cost us next to nothing from Barrow and will be a massive part of this team this year. Zach Erdeke, goes without saying, was just Mr. Consistent. He didn't do anything special in attack, but there was nothing getting past him.
One of the better players in the field, yeah, for Zach Erdeke was it. But I mean, same for Wigan and Leeds. They've both got new coaches, both got new players coming in. There's going to be a period to adapt. One thing I'm worried about for Leeds is because we've got 4 games away in a row, you don't have much time to adapt. You lose those first 4 games. We've already had Warrington, which we've lost. We've got Wigan, obviously on Friday, which for me I wouldn't be going there expecting to win. Then we've got Salford away, and we know how good they were against Huddersfield. And then we've got St Helens away.
I think Friday night is a must-win game very early on. Leeds have to win it for consistency and a lot of hard games in a row. We're going to have to win it because after this week, they're not going to play for another 2 weeks. And they don't want to be 8 points behind, given the -2 deduction, which we'll get onto later. But they don't want to be 8 points behind this early on. I think we just quickly go back to OKR because I don't think we really spoke about them, and I think you've got to look at that team and go.
Yeah,
wow.
Obviously a lot of experience in that team. Dan Maguire, obviously vastly experienced. He's won man of the match at the grand final twice. Never mind, he's won the man of the match, the grand final about 6 times himself. Mitch Garbutt's won the grand final. Jimmy Kainos won the grand final. Joel Tompkins won the grand final. It's a team littered with experience. Yeah. But it's not all experience from age. Like obviously Mitch Garbutt, so I think he's only about 26, 27. Jimmy Kainos the same, about 25. You know, these are not old players. Dan Maguire is probably his last season. Let's be fair. It will
be his last year. Yeah.
Drinkwater, I think, what a signing. That's the sort of player I wanted Leeds to go out and get. Sort of someone who could. If Dan Maguire's not playing,
it wasn't a bit misplaced anyway. I think everybody in the league was talking about Drinkwater as they were talking about Jackson Hastings. Those were the 2 players that were what everybody wanted.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Hull have really made they really put out their intent to do well in the league by picking him up. I think he's a brilliant player. I'd have easily taken him at Leeds. If Dan Maguire's not playing, he'll step into that role. He can command the play. He knows what's going on. And Ulker, I mean, I think they're sold out against Hull FC for the first game of the season, which is brilliant. If they can get the fans behind them, because it's
stadium record.
Yeah, it's a brilliant atmosphere there, and if they've got the fans behind, it'll be a tough place to go, especially with the team they've got. Ulker could easily finish top 6, if not top 5.
I wouldn't back against them, nor would I back against current top of the table, Salford, who with Jackson Hastings, Robert Louis, and Niall Evalds probably have the best 1-6-7 partnership in the league.
Without a doubt, and we said this last season. Obviously, I went away to Salford in the middle eights, and it was one of Jackson Hastings' first games, and I was worried. I mean, Robert Louis and Jackson Hastings, a brilliant partnership, probably the best 6-7 pairing in the league. And
it sounds weird to say, because obviously you're talking about teams that like Warrington, who have Patton and Austin, and you have Wigan, who have Williams and Luluai, you have Leeds that have Lillahea and Marley, but Salford, who have been down there at the bottom, have Robert Louis and Jackson Hastings.
No, yeah. If the rest of the team could pick up off what they'll create, and they will create a lot because they are two class players.
Just watching the highlights on the Super League show, honestly, fantastic. Like the way that they commanded the play, and the plays that they were able to set up off the back of it, give Niall Evalds so much space. We know all about Niall Evalds, much like a Jamie Shaw type of player. Okay, might not be able to muscle up in defence consistently, but once he's given him the ball in space, he'll find the space.
And yeah, and Salford get a lot of stick as a club for not bringing all the fans that you maybe expect from a team that spent so much money. But I think over 1,500, I think maybe went to Huddersfield. And
I think it was 1,500.
Yeah, that's brilliant away following. Especially first game of the season, you maybe expect a bumper crowd, but that is massive from Salford. If they can keep up sort of like the atmosphere, I mean, I went in the Middle East and there must have only been about 4,000 people there, but it was one of the loudest stadiums I'd been to. The fans are incredible, and if they can boost the numbers as well, I don't see why they can't be a top club.
I agree, and we'll just quickly mark, because we haven't mentioned them yet, at Huddersfield before we move on to the Championship. Obviously, we both live in Huddersfield. You went to. I still go to the University of Huddersfield. So it's a club that's close to us on a more personal level, but maybe not something we're attached to. And I'm worried, to say the least.
If there's a team that's going to challenge London for relegation, I think it'll be Huddersfield. I don't know what happened against Salford. Obviously, we had friends that went and we watched the highlight. Dreadful. It looked shocking. Some of the tries
looked
they
like
conceded.
There was no atmosphere. It looked like there was no consistency. It looked like there was no...
The cowbell is back. That is one positive.
Oh, long live the cowbell. I think you've got to... They do have a lot of first-team injuries, Huddersfield, and they've come into the season knowing that was going to be the case. And much like last season, maybe going to have this 8-week period where they're maybe just not up to scratch, and then they'll kick on. But you can't rely on a kick-on period in July every season to keep you in the Super League. It's just not going to happen.
It's a sort of club, though, Huddersfield. You're hoping that they're not just the sort of just keep staying in the Super League team. You want them to be the team that challenge stuff. I mean, they've still got posters up around Huddersfield from when they won the league leaders back in 2013, I believe. It's like this. They are a team that are capable of doing really well, and they have got some big players in there. They've got Seb, Uarte, and lost Danny Brough, which I thought was a strange one. Danny Brough was the heart and soul of that team, and maybe
I think that's maybe a short-term silly decision, but long-term will save them a lot of
Well, I don't think he's got long left anyway. I'd have thought he'd retired at Huddersfield, but it depends if they can fill the gap, because he's the sort of player, even if you're not playing well, Danny Brough's going to win you a game, because you're going to put in a 40-20
well,
year.
They had the young lad Farrell playing there on Friday night, and by all accounts, he had a decent game. So, I mean, the future's there, but I just think it's important for the club and for the town, given that Huddersfield Town look like they're going to get relegated from the Premier League, that they can have a top-flight professional team.
They've got a really good opportunity here, Giants. Huddersfield Town going down, obviously, in remarkable style. Not quite a record breaker, but you got a chance then to pick up some fans.
They've still got a chance to break the record. Yeah. They don't get any more points.
You've got a chance to bring in loads of fans who still want to go see top-flight sport. Bring them into the Giants. I think they had free tickets on at Salford, and the atmosphere was. I mean, there was nobody there still. It was about 4,000 attendance, which is for a team as big as Huddersfield.
In the nicest way, a lot of those were students that came because there were free tickets.
Yeah, I mean it's not a good sign for Huddersfield. I don't know what they need to. Maybe they need to move away from the John Smiths. It might be a stadium too big where Huddersfield are. A smaller stadium that's going to boost the atmosphere.
Potentially, and if they do get onto a roll, like you said, you can create a bit more of a buzz in a place like that. But that's all remains to be seen. I think Huddersfield are the ones, like we say. Obviously, you can't tip anybody for relegation at this point, but they need to turn the results around quickly. So let's move on to the Championship, like I said. Although, before we go to the Championship, you just mentioned attendance with Salford. And that's something that resounded throughout the fixtures. I think it was something that was expected with a few fixtures. So, like, Wigan Saints were always going to bring in 15,000 more. Hull was always going to bring in 10,000 more. While Leeds was always going to bring in a solid attendance. But the rest of the Super League also gave their part. There was a record, well, that's a record. There was the best crowd there's been at London for about 24 months, which is a good effort. The first game of the season against Wakefield.
I think they said we were about 68 down from the first round of last season. However, they could have easily smashed the record. You've got to think if Widnes were in the Super League instead of London, they'd have been about 2,000 more, so probably would have been about 2,000. If you'd have sent London away to Catalans and had Castleford-Wakefield, which for me it's a shocking decision that they didn't have Castleford-Wakefield. You know, they've had all the big teams playing each other to try and boost the attendance.
Oh yeah, Castle-Wakefield would have been close to a sellout as well.
Yeah, it probably will sold out. So then you'd have thought that'd have been a great fact. They could have easily broken the first round attendance record. They could have smashed through it this time.
I think you've got to save some big games for other rounds though, because otherwise you start to everything gets compiled into one area. But I think all in all, good start.
Really promising, yeah.
The Super League campaign's underway, and it's probably the best rugby we're going to see for a while. So I'm looking forward to it. So we'll move on to the Championship, and we'll start with Toronto, because they were on TV, and we both watched the game again. York City Knights look good.
They defensively, I don't think I've seen a good defensive performance from any team, Super League, Championship, NRL, whatever, for a long time. They were heroic, to say the least. Towards the end, obviously, I think they got a bit tired.
I think so, but I don't think that was as much the case as they put pressure on themselves in not being able to turn over the ball and score a point. Sorry, and I think you've got to look at Toronto in terms of Toronto didn't defend as well as York did because York had to do more defending, but Toronto was strong in defence and they will be strong in defence. They've got a lot of Super League players. They've got a team that are a top 8 Super League team anywhere. When you're playing against teams like York, you're going to be able to shut them out better than playing, obviously, top oppositions. So I think that was the biggest problem for York. If they would have got over the try line once or twice, it's a different game because their defence was that outstanding. But, I mean, York aren't expected to finish in the top 4. York are just there for a development season to keep building and building and building on this new image that they've created for themselves. And that is a fantastic start. That is a start that's going to pull people off the streets into the stadium to watch the games.
Well, they've obviously got the new stadium coming, which can be brilliant for the city, for the football club and the rugby club. Hopefully they can get the fans in to support the team. I think they've got Dewsbury on Sunday, which I think is a brilliant game for them. That's the sort. Toronto's a brilliant game for them to start off with.
And this is where you want to win your first win.
But Dewsbury is a very winnable game for York. If they play like they did against Toronto, there's no reason they can't do quite well this season. But obviously Toronto, I think you're expecting to finish top.
I think that we needn't say a lot about Toronto. I think we all know where they're supposed to finish, and we all know the squad that they've got is probably going to lead them there. But there are a couple of teams that could challenge them, and one of them is Widnes.
Widnes need to bounce back quick because I feel like with the new system, 1 up, 1 down, you're going to be fighting against the relegated team every season.
I give it 2 seasons, 3 years. If they keep the players that they have in the squad now, I give it 2 years, 3 years before they're back in the Super League.
If they don't get back in the Super League, though, you've got to start to worry what happens then.
I mean, but we've been here before with Widnes, and Widnes were relegated from the Super League and lingered for a bit in the Championship, and they came back up, and when they came back up, they had those 2 or 3 years where they finished 7th, 8th, and they were in the playoffs, and they were competing. So we've been here before, and it's whether they can restructure and rebuild that ethos again to get them back out of there. I think this season's going to be the tough one because they've got Toronto. I think next season you look at Huddersfield, London, whoever comes down, I don't think they're going to be a strongest team as the Toronto team that's going up. So I would feel like Widnes' season might be next season, but they have to keep up with the players that they've got now. Players like Anthony Gelling, he'll set the championship alight. He was a remarkable player for Wigan when they won the league. So in the championship, he'll walk over teams.
I think, yeah. One thing I would be worried about is the growth in professional teams, the championship. I think at the moment there's only about 4 teams left in the championship now that aren't professional, whereas you think back 5-6 years ago there's only about 4 that
worried
were.
from a Widnes point of view, not from a championship point of view.
It's brilliant for the sport, that's what you want, but from a Widnes point of view, you've got to now state your claim as we're still a big club, obviously club of great history, not been very successful in recent times, but you've now, I think you've got to pick up and kick on and say, right.
You'd probably say it's the most similar it's been to football in a long time, in that when you get relegated from the Premier League, you have to go, right, this club, this badge, this team, this is a Premier League team, this is the Premier League, and we're going to get back there. That's going to be the same in Rugby League now when you get relegated. If London do go down, I mean, everyone's predicting it. I don't think they will, but if London do go down, they've got to set the brand and go, no, we're a Super League brand now, and we're going back there straight away. And that's the way you're going to get back into the Super League consistently. You're not going to be able to linger in the Championship for long.
I mean, yeah, but you've got teams like Bradford that are coming up. Obviously, York becoming a strong team. Sheffield, I think, destroyed Rochdale the other day, and you're thinking maybe it's Sheffield's time. Maybe finally Sheffield can kick on and actually do something.
I mean, Sheffield have been tipped to be the top 4 for the last 3 or 4 years, and they finished 6th, 7th, 8th. They've always managed to just fall short, but you never know. I mean, as long as they keep turning up and putting in performances like that, I feel like we'll see how good Rochdale really are on Sunday when they get to play Toronto. But again, like I said, you never know, and we'll see how that goes. But Bradford looked good, Lee looked good, Widnes looked good, Sheffield looked good. Featherstone were unlucky against Bradford. Perhaps one of the tries looks very dubious. I'm sure we've all seen the one we're talking about. Barrow and Batley was a fantastic game by all accounts. But Barrow came away with it. I saw Barrow play against Wigan in the pre-season, and they are a tough team to beat at home.
I really think the Championship could be better than the Super League this season. There's so many good teams that could challenge for the top, that are going to have so many good games. There's a lot of good players in it now, a lot of professional teams. I'm really looking forward to some Championship rugby on Sky Sports again.
It's good that it's back on TV. It's a perfect season for it to be back on TV as well.
One thing it's probably the season you wanted the middle eights the most, because you could almost see 4 teams going up and 4 teams going down this season.
Exactly, but also I do think that structure was a bit misplaced. But what I would say is that I agree that it's probably better for it to be 2 up, 2 down, but that's a decision that we can't make.
No, that's how I think a lot of people would have wanted to, but we can see how this goes. If after 4 years we're seeing it's the same team going up, the same team going down,
there'll be a reshuffle again.
Yeah.
But I don't think that'll be the case. I genuinely don't think that'll be the case.
Rugby League's never had a problem changing its rules. It's one thing we're good at, and one thing that's maybe a crux to us, that we're constantly changing its rules. But can't say we're not willing to adapt as a sport. The fans that keep coming, and Sky Sports keeps paying the money, and the players still want to play. I mean, looks like there might be a bit of a participation. I wouldn't say crisis, but issue at a younger level. We see less and less kids playing rugby league, which is worrying, I think, for the future of the game. But
so obviously the Championship's going to be a good season this year, and the Super League's going to be fantastic as well. I think both competitions will light the game up. But this weekend there's another competition taking place, or should I say continuing, the Challenge Cup. And that's obviously the competition that even the big teams want to win. Who do you think is going to win the Challenge Cup? Who's got the best chance of winning the Challenge Cup?
I would love for Catalans to go and do it again. If they are going in for free, which they're insisting they are going to do it for free.
I agree with you, because I think it would get all the right responses.
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of fans, like this, obviously RFL, they're going to lose so much money on the away fans. I think a lot of fans would be willing to go down to Wembley and support Catalans from a neutral perspective. We went to the semi-final at Bolton. And
with our Catalonian flags,
with our flags and our hats and everything, and we supported the Catalan Dragons there, and I'll happily go down to Wembley and do it again, because I think they're a good club, and I'd love them to go and do it again. I don't think they will, but it would be nice for them. I think the Challenge Cup falls for a good time for them, because it's a lot of the harder games are in the summer, and if you can get an away game, because more likely to, it's a 50-50 draw. If you do get an away day, that'd be brilliant for them. They've got a very good chance. Again, I think the semi-finals are a double header at Bolton. In fact, it's a triple header because they'll have the Women's Challenge Cup final
well,
on early.
Which is fantastic to see. I'm so happy that they've managed to organise this. I think it could have been organised slightly better last year when they had the Super League final in Manchester, because I feel like that could have been an hour or two earlier to give fans a chance. I feel like the fact that the games were so close together, people weren't risking missing the start of the grand final. But that concept in itself, to merge the two, I'm a massive fan of.
Oh yeah, brilliant! I'm looking forward to going again. Even if Leeds don't get there, I'll still be going as a neutral and supporting the competition. Seeing all 3 games, I think I really enjoyed my day out in Bolton. I think it's a good stadium, good facilities.
I don't disagree. But the Challenge Cup at this stage is just made up of all the amateur clubs still. There's a game on BBC which I'm not sure which game it is.
There's the game on I think on the RL app is, or our league app is the
St Pat's British Police game, but I'm not sure which the BBC is showing.
No, I'm not sure. Have they decided yet? I'm not aware of that.
They have decided. I can't find it. But let's talk about St Pat's anyway, because obviously it's a club I used to play for. It's a club close to my heart, and they've got the police, which obviously is a select team rather than a league team. Is this a possibility again, like a big tie? A big tie away from home? Is this the glory tie for the Wigan St Patrick's?
I think the police have done well to get as far as they did. Normally, you expect the army team, the navy team, the RF team, the police. They always tend to go quite early on. They don't seem to win so many games.
But hey, the police could turn Pats over, and they could get the glory tie.
I can't remember who they played in the first round, but I feel like they turned them over. They won by about 20 odd points, I think. If Pats don't turn up on the day, there's no reason the police can do it, and then maybe get a bigger game the next time.
Get a Newcastle Thunder away or something like that. That'd be
brilliant for them. Yeah,
fantastic for the police. But, yeah.
I think it'll be a good game to watch on the app as well. I'm looking forward to that.
I think, again, at a pitch where a lot of famous people have graced, so famous players have played before. So I think it'd be a good one to watch on the Air League app. That's 2:00 on Saturday afternoon. So let's move on to more general stuff rather than specifics. We're gonna get up on my computer the Rumour Mill article by our columnist Jack. If you've not seen that, go on to the Serious About Rugby League website. It's there. It's just called the Rumour Mill. It's number 2. And we're going to talk about probably the most controversial issue in rugby league right now, which is Ben Barba.
I'm struggling to grasp. As far as I'm aware, he's not actually been charged with anything yet. He's not committed a criminal offence, but he has been deregistered from the NRL, which I think is the right decision. You don't want players that have been seen to do something like that in the sport. They're not role models. I wouldn't want them at my club, personally.
I think there's a massive controversial conversation to have here, and you've got to be careful what you say in certain situations, but is there a difference between Ben Barba and the likes of Rangi Chase, Herdacre? And the answer is, for me, yes.
Yeah, there is. There's
a massive difference. And obviously, I'm not condoning what Zach Herdacre did. I'm not condoning what Rangi Chase did. I don't think they're suitable. I think they got given a punishment and they took it. And let's not forget that Ben Barba also had a punishment that long, both from the NRL and from Super League, for a similar charge on 2 failed tests. Like, it's not something that's just come out of the blue. But that aside, that is a personal choice that ruins, for me, themselves. I think this is a very, very serious case that gets a lot of, personally, it gets a lot of people very disappointed, and to allow somebody the satisfaction of being able to be a role model and play professional sport on such a high wage after something like this is...
It's more than what they deserve, isn't it? And I'm glad that the RFL will come out and say that the ban would be
upheld.
Upheld
I
over
agree,
here as well.
and I think Super League will handle this perfectly in terms of just saying, look, we're not going to get involved. It's not our investigation. It's up to the Australian police and it's up to the NRL. But whatever they decide through the correct course is something that we'll uphold, because that's the right way to go about it. It's nothing to do with it. It's on the other side of the world. But right now, it's probably the best choice for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think this might be a bit controversial, but I think a lot of the teams that are looking to pick up Ben Barba, there seems to be the one that are defending him and saying that he hasn't been charged with any criminal offence, so therefore shouldn't be banned. But I think you've got to look at this from a more human point and say, look, he'd be a great acquisition for any team, but you still don't want him in the club.
Fantastic player, and if it was based on his playing ability, every team in the world would want him. But it goes past something here, and there's a path. Is it past a rehabilitation point? I'm not sure it is. I always believe that somebody can get rehabilitated properly, but I feel like Ben Barba needs to do that before he commits to playing professional sport again.
Yeah, if he can now go away, take time off the sport and show that he's improved as a person, then there's no reason why he wouldn't be able to come back and play for a Super League team or an NRL team, because he has got the quality, but he has to do that first for me.
I think that's the important part. Well, that is the controversial issue of the week, and I mean, feel free to leave your comments if you want to talk about it to us. If we can bring up some of them next week if we do get some good comments in. But the one thing that we always did last year was fans focus, which is where we asked the fans a question, and we're going to do it a bit differently this year. That we're going to ask the question at the end of the podcast for the following week. And we're going to give our opinions now, and we want a response from you, and we'll talk about it next week. And that's the point deduction from Wigan, because I feel like that's a bit have a happier scenario to talk about online. I think people have come out and said exactly what they want to say already. But from our point of view, or from your point of view, Connor, what do you think? Is it the right decision?
I think if it is true, what Wigan are saying, and that they were fully open about what happened, and that they told the RFL every step of the way what had happened, and I mean, let's be fair, they haven't broken the salary cap because they've signed more players than they should have done, or they're spending more money than they should have done. They had an injury crisis, and they've had to draft in youngsters, which has cost them in transport and agent fees, I believe. I think that's the reason they've gone over the salary cap. If it's an administrative thing like that,
and there's a bit of confusion as to what's actually happened. It's just a case of, as has been stated, there's been clarity in the whole situation. So no matter what's happened, there's clearly been clarity. And I do remember the time period, because I remember Wigan asking for dispensation on the cap for a couple of weeks because of the injury crisis. I think they had 15 to 17 first team players out at the time. And you look at this season, and I don't mean not in a bitter way or anything, but I look at this season, Luke Gale's one player's been injured and they've been given dispensation from the cap. So like, what's the difference in the two scenarios? But they have broke the rules, and a punishment needs to be given. Whether 2 points is the correct punishment is...
I mean, the idea that Wigan could go into the next... Well, after Leeds, the game after that, 8 points behind, top of the table, it seems like a bit of a harsh punishment, doesn't it? That sort of thing. I mean, I saw Salford fans complain that they got 6 points, but that's because they broke the cap.
It was a five-figure sum.
They knowingly broke the cap to gain an advantage competition. I don't think Wigan have tried... I mean, I think in the 6 games that Wigan played where they were above the cap, they lost 6 games. So it's not like they've gained any special advantage from it. They've had their fine. I don't feel the need for a points deduction, and that's from a Leeds fans perspective. You know,
I think the important thing is that it's happened now, and I would never blame the 2 point deduction for Wigan not having a successful season. I think that's a point you've got to make, is that if Wigan are going to have a successful season, they're going to have one anyway, whether it's -2 or not. I just think from a long-term point of view, you've got to be consistent now. If you're going to uphold this decision, you've got to be consistent. And no matter what, even if a team goes £2 over the cap, they have to have the same punishment. And that's the point now. It's been set down.
I definitely think that it would be better for the game if the ruling was upheld. I think it starts to look a bit of a farce if you start overturning decisions left, right, and centre. But like you said, as long as it's consistent, I'm happy for it to continue. Obviously, I wouldn't be happy if I was a Wigan fan, but
I'm not unhappy. I don't think that it's the worst decision that could have been made. I just think there's not a lot of clarity in the situation, given that teams have gone over not by this much, obviously, but I mean, teams have had these situations before, and with it being such a minor incident in terms of the amount and the reasons behind the amount, nobody's been punished this much, especially 2 years later. And let's not forget, it is 2 seasons on. We're not even being punished for something that happened in the season, like getting a title stripped or something, because like we said, Wigan took no advantage from that season. They finished 6th in the league. They didn't get to the challenge. They lost in the Challenge Cup, I think. Or that might have been the season before. But they got no advantage from it. So it's an interesting decision. And the Super League CEO's come out today and said it's perplexing, was his exact words. So I feel like that's it's a turning point now, because if they overturn it, then it looks stupid. But if they don't overturn it, then it's always going to be a point of discussion.
And it's I mean, maybe it'll push people towards. I know it's our personal view. It's something we'll probably not touch on here, but scrap the cap.
Scrap the cap. I mean, we could talk about scrap the cap another day. We'll wait for another week for that one, and we'll see what people think. But I know we're both a massive fan of scrapping the cap, but that's one for another day. And I think we've waffled on enough for today, and we'll leave it to you guys to answer for yourselves what you think the correct punishment should have been, or what will happen. Will they get it rescinded? I know Wigan are going to appeal, or will they have to stick with the 2 points? We'll find out in the next few weeks. But we want your guys' opinions, and hopefully this has been a bit more sort of like conversational than in last year, and we want you guys to get involved as much as possible again. So from both myself and Connor, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.